On this week's edition of the Palace of Pistons podcast, more and more signs point to Malik Beasley returning to the Detroit Pistons. We also asked the question, if Detroit is only able to extend one of Jalen Duren or Jaden Ivey this offseason, who would you choose to extend? Really interesting discussion there. It's a fun podcast. Hope you enjoy. Let's do it.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another exciting night of NBA basketball.
The Pistons are digging in. They got the depth. They got the big men. They got the better basketball team. No doubt about it.
Pistons need a three, and they have just under 3 seconds to do it. Here's Chauncey Billups. Here it is. He's got it. He's got it. Chauncey Billups hits the three. Overtime. Amazing. On a bounce. Detroit basketball.
Pistons fans, welcome back to another edition of the Palace of Pistons podcast, brought to you by Believe, Aaron Johnson and Jasper Apollonia, here with you this week for today's show. And look, we have to address the elephant in the room. Unfortunately, in our last podcast, myself and Mike Anguilano, when talking about our great friends over at the FanDuel Sportsbook, we talked about our picks for the Lions versus the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay, week 1 of the NFL season. And Mike and I, we were a little surprised at what FanDuel had the line at. Lions were eventually, 2.5 point underdogs to Green Bay. Mike and I were both in agreement to take the Lions, to take the points, because we thought that they were going to beat the Packers. And it didn't happen. And our friends over at FanDuel, hey, they were right. The Packers deserved to be the favorite in that game, and they definitely outplayed the Lions. So I said, hey, let's go back to the well this week. We like to bring up a line each week that we're looking at, that we might be playing some action on. And this week, the Lions host the Chicago Bears. The line opened at, I want to say, Lions -4. Maybe it was 4.5. It's now moved all the way to Lions -6.5. This is tricky for me. If we were talking about who wins this game outright, I feel really comfortable saying that I think the Lions bounce back this week. I think that the absolute meltdown in Detroit over the last few days has been absolutely hysterical. We have just total chaos because the Lions lost week 1. But I think this is a week 2 bounce back for them. 6.5 points, though, is a lot. Granted, the Bears did lose to a Minnesota team led by a rookie quarterback in a game where Chicago led. I don't know, Jasper, could you tell me what you're thinking here? What's this line? 6.5. Do the Lions cover that?
I think this is one of those Lions win but Bears cover situations. Both of these offenses looked pretty... I would not say that either of these quarterbacks exactly covered themselves in glory week 1. Caleb Williams in particular, and in the second half, like fourth quarter there, he got completely outplayed by J.J. McCarthy. Like he looked like Caleb Williams last year, like made some really nice throws at points, but there were some big plays where he just was not even close to where he needed to be. And the Lions offensively, a big point of discussion the whole offseason was, how big of a loss are Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson? Well, I don't know about Aaron Glenn yet, although the defense didn't look amazing, but Ben Johnson definitely looks like a big loss. The Lions offense looked very out of sorts against Green Bay, and I didn't even think Micah Parsons was like game-breakingly good for the Packers either. Like, to me, this is I still am rocking with the Lions to win like 11 games, but it looks a little scarier now. There was just a lot of creativity missing from that offense. Like, They still have playmakers, though. Like, Tesla is obviously legit. Laporta's obviously still like one of the 5-6 best tight ends in the game. Like J-Mo, they got Gibbs, they got Montgomery. There's enough weapons on this team to where I still think they can beat a team like the Bears, but I think it might be a little closer than a touchdown. So I think I'm picking the Bears to cover, honestly.
No.
I'm just a little scared.
Yeah, and I think 6.5 points for a team that just got embarrassed in week one. I think having that line at 6.5 is a lot for them to cover. I think I'm with you. I'm more interested in this game from the standpoint of, what did the Lions do, how does Ben Johnson going against the Lions make this game look? Everyone's talking about Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn like they were the brains of the operations behind last season's Detroit Lions team. So I'll be really interested to watch this game and see if the Lions can bounce back. But I'm with you. I think 6.5 points is a lot. I still think the Lions could win, but I don't know if they cover. I don't know. We'll see.
This still has like it's got like a 30-24 feel to me. You know what I mean? Like that sneaky backdoor cover from the Bears. They kick a field goal, like can't get an onside kick, like just feels like one of those games. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's going to be something that is just riffraff in this game, and it's not just going to be a clean back and straight up game. There's going to be something. So everyone in Detroit will be watching, and for the city of Detroit, for the state of Michigan, let's just hope the Lions win, because I don't know if I can take another week of the sports media conversation and the fan conversation surrounding the Detroit Lions. I mean, this team finally gets good, and we've got to act like the sky is falling because they lost in the first week of the season. Whatever. Let's get on to what we're here for, and that is to talk about the Detroit Pistons. Man, we are a few weeks away from NBA media days for each team across the league. That then gets us into training camp, and then into October, we have the NBA preseason. And that's what's always funny about football starting up, because for someone like me, it is great that football is back, but when football returns, I know that means we are right on the cusp of the NBA also returning. So very excited for basketball to almost be back. And so with that, let's talk about our two main topics today for the Detroit Pistons, starting with this. It has been a offseason of, let's just say, hell for Malik Beasley. Had a multi-year deal lined up with the Detroit Pistons prior to the start of NBA free agency. And then right on the eve of free agency, news broke that he was under federal investigation for potentially gambling on NBA props and games and whatnot back when he was with the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, though, we've seen some progressions throughout the offseason, no longer under federal investigation. Malik Beasley's remained very active online. He's made it very clear that he's done nothing wrong. His lawyer has made the same claims. And now we're at a point where the NBA had launched its own investigation into Beasley, and that investigation is now in its closing stages. Malik Beasley has said he is going to make a decision soon on what team he is going to sign with. So it feels like this saga is going to finally come to a close within perhaps the coming weeks. On top of this, if you've been on social media, you know that Cade Cunningham, along with Jalen Duren, were in Italy doing something together. And it turns out Malik Beasley also found himself in Italy. And at one point, all three of them were together in Italy. Does it feel like everything's adding up for Malik Beasley to remain a Detroit Piston? You look at all of that. You look at the fact that in all of the workout videos and whatnot that he's posting this offseason, he's been in Detroit Piston gear. He's been interacting with Pistons players online. I think Tobias Harris was the one that tweeted the other day when the video came out of those three Pistons in Italy together, saying that they should have a drink together. So it just feels like they all know Malik Beasley is going to be a Detroit Piston again. And at least it feels that way to me. That's not sourced or anything, but it feels that way, no?
Yeah, I mean, I've been very consistent about this. I've always felt like as long as the situation got cleared up, nothing was really going to stop Malik Beasley from being a Piston again unless there was a financial impasse. But the Pistons are the team that can offer him the most money going into next year. So from my perspective, there's not really a good reason for him not to be on the roster. We've seen all the potential targets for a backup power forward spot kind of disappear. Trey Lyles is now in Europe. Chris Boucher is now in Boston. So your options there are pretty limited at this point. It seems pretty clear that they're not going to be bringing in a free agent to shore up that position. So you have this money, you have this guy that very clearly has a strong connection with the team and with the players still, was a huge part of the culture shift last year. I don't really see a good reason why he shouldn't come back. And you could make the arguments, well, defensively, him and Duncan Robinson and Karis LeVert, that's Jaden Ivey and Ron Holland, that's a lot of shooting guards. I get it. But this is a team that relied so heavily on Malik Beasley last year in order to get them any semblance of shooting at times. I don't think you want to have that same situation arise this year with somebody like Duncan Robinson. They need to have depth in that position. They were incredibly lucky that Malik Beasley didn't miss time last year. If Malik Beasley had missed 10, 15 games last season, I really do think ultimately, things would have played out a little differently. They still would have made the playoffs for sure, but they could have easily slid down to the play-in without his ability to space the floor consistently for them throughout the season. So everything I've seen this offseason has told me he wants to be a part of this organization. Everything seems to be clearing itself up in terms of a legal issues, in terms of financial issues, in terms of a potential suspension. It does seem like this is all kind of coming to a close. And the fact that the NBA has been doing their own investigation that's now coming to an end does also explain why Malik Beasley has remained unsigned. Teams are looking out, hey, it could be a thing where he's clear with the FBI, but the NBA wants to institute some sort of punishment. Well, that's going to obviously affect how you as an organization are going to approach a contract with that player. If he's suspended for 5 games, whatever. If he's suspended for 30, well, maybe you don't want to pay him as much as he possibly could get. So I think that's probably what's been throwing a wrench into the works. I do anticipate this getting resolved once this NBA investigation is cleared up. It is kind of funny. The Malik Beasley situation almost kind of mirrors the Pistons situation from 2 years ago, where you're just like, oh my God, how can this get any worse? It's all going to get even worse than this. Everything's going downhill. Cade's not going to resign. And then it turns out just by getting rid of a couple of bad actors and paying off the right people, Monty Williams, you can fix things up pretty quickly as long as you're going about it in the right way. So I think to me, this is a very encouraging sign. I've been consistent. I wonder if for you, Aaron, you look at it any differently than I do, or do you just think this is kind of he's paid off the debts, the NBA investigation is coming to a close, he's going to be on a roster, likely our roster, very soon?
Yeah, and I don't want to speculate on suspension. I don't know if he's not under federal investigation, and so if he's not under federal investigation and the NBA's investigation is wrapping up, it would be weird if they found out, they determined he was doing something, but then he wasn't, nothing happened out of the federal investigation. So I don't know if there will be a suspension, and that's obviously a good thing for him if there is none. But this is a situation where, as long as he is cleared, as long as he is able to suit up and play in an NBA game, the Detroit Pistons need to make sure that Malik Beasley is on this roster. You can never have too much shooting. You can never have too much guard depth. And the fact of the matter is, what he brings is something that this team does not have enough of. One of my bigger criticisms of the Pistons offseason so far is I just don't know if they've added enough shooting guys that are going to be able to step in and play. Obviously, Duncan Robinson steps in as what was the Malik Beasley replacement at the time, but it doesn't look like Chaz Lanier is stepping into a rotation spot right away. Karis LeVert going to be in the rotation, not a reliable three-point shooter. They never really addressed the backup 4 spot and added any forward depth, forward shooting there. So I've just felt for the sake of the roster's balance, they've needed more shooting. Obviously, Malik Beasley does that. Obviously, this is a guy that was a massive part of their success story last year. And if they're getting him back now on a $7 million contract, I think it's 7.1 or 7.2 is the max that the Pistons can offer him. If they're getting him on anything at that or below, which is what it would be based off the numbers that they're allowed to pay, it's a great deal. I mean, they paid him $6 million last year, and this was a finalist for the NBA's Sixth Man of the Year award. So the Pistons have to make sure they get Malik Beasley back if he's eligible to play, and all signs point to that being the case. I think there's the opportunity to have peace of mind considering how much we're seeing online about his interactions with the Pistons and all of that. I think that's really telling. I think if you didn't see any of those posts or any of those interactions, I mean, seeing them together, seeing the Tobias Harris tweet, that is comforting in the sense of if you want him back, if you think he needs to be back, that makes me feel like he's going to be back. Again, it's not sourced or anything, but that's just the feeling. And I'll feel a lot better about this roster if they get Malik Beasley back. I still think they'll have some issues, some depth issues at the 4 spot, but that is besides the point. Malik Beasley is going to be a top 6, 7, 8 player on this team, and if you can get that type of player on a contract for $7 million or less per season, you absolutely do it 100 times out of 100.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that these interactions were happening even while he was being investigated by the FBI, I think that in and of itself, it's why I feel confident that if the organization wants him back, they will get it done. I don't think if it doesn't happen, I don't think it's going to be because Malik Beasley didn't want to be in Detroit. It's purely going to be because the organization decides to go in a different direction. But as we've said, they still have an open roster spot that has to be filled. They only have 13 guys signed right now. So they have to get that 14th spot filled. That is a requirement.
Wasn't it Javonte Green? Didn't he fill the 14th spot?
Oh, you know what? You're right. I totally forgot about the Javonte Green signing. You're right. My apologies. But still, the point remains. They still have an open roster spot. The players on the team have clearly been behind him the entire time. They haven't been shying away. And that also tells me that the organization has not been telling these guys to shy away from Malik Beasley. I do think if there was really fire here, I do think the organization probably would have been, saying to their other players, hey, this is not somebody we want you to associate with. I don't know how much they can enforce that, but it'd be a pretty bad look otherwise. So, yeah, to me, I just think all signs, even since this investigation started, pointed to Beasley being back with them if things got cleared up. And it appears that in all regards, not just in terms of a criminal investigation, but also in terms of getting his finances figured out, which I do think is kind of an important thing. I just think that you just want to eliminate any sort of distractions. I think him eliminating all distractions will probably put the organization's minds to rest, and you can just move forward. And like you said, there is a need for Malik Beasley on this roster. Yes, Duncan Robinson was a good guy to bring in. Don't get me wrong. I think he can replace a lot of that production, but you don't just want to be relying on one player to do all your spacing for you. It's very clear to me, especially this year, that roster versatility and guys being able to play multiple roles is going to be very important. So they're going to need guys who can fit in in multiple ways. And I just think having Malik Beasley out there gives you way more options than just having Duncan Robinson.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the roster right now, and it's clearly in need of more NBA minute-ready shooting. You're going to get good shooting out of Duncan Robinson. Tobias Harris is a capable option from the outside. You'd like to believe that Jaden Ivey is going to continue to build on the success that he had shooting ball in the first 30 or so games of last season, a 40% 3-point shooter. You hope that continues. You hope there's a little bit more of a 3-point shooting leap from Cade Cunningham. But then you have those pieces that right now are not floor spacers and have a long ways to go before they ever even try to become floor spacers. Jalen Duren, Asar Thompson, Ron Holland. So getting this shooting back would be really good for this team. When it comes to positional balance, this roster is still a little bit wonky. I definitely still think that even if they do bring Malik Beasley back, they're a prime team to make a midseason trade to fix up the construction of the roster a little bit, balance out the guards and the forwards a little bit. But no, I think we're in agreement, and I'm pretty sure everybody else is in agreement that if the Pistons can get Malik Beasley back, they need to do just that. Let us know in the comments below what you think. Do we feel like Malik Beasley is going to be a Piston? Should the Pistons be bringing Malik Beasley back? I feel like he was very much so a fan favorite last year for Detroit, so I feel the comments are going to be very much supportive of bringing him back, and I think that makes a ton of sense.
Aaron, just quickly, in regards to what you were saying, you brought up a good point. The Pistons likely will need to make a trade at some point this season. Like, you look at the roster, there are definite holes there, and we've gone over in our X Factor discussion. There's so many guys that need to make a leap for Detroit this season in order for them to make a leap as an organization. And if they don't, there might be trades that might need to happen. I think another underrated aspect about bringing back Malik Beasley is that it opens up the trade market for you even more, to where you could potentially part with him as part of a package, or you could potentially part with Duncan Robinson as part of a package and not lose all your floor spacing while doing it. So I think that is another thing. Like, you can look at it and you can say, well, there's still holes. Maybe there's some overlap. That's okay. If you have proven NBA players that, you can package as part of a deal to potentially a contender, or alongside a younger player that maybe you want to move on from, for a more established veteran, that's money that you can use in order to facilitate a deal like that. So I think that's a small but crucial part of it as well. Like, it opens up the trade market for you during the season. And I think that's an option the Pistons will be exploring at some point.
And it could also open up the trade market as we move on to our next topic here. It could also open up the trade market for someone like a Jaden Ivey, who, if you're not sure if you're ready to commit to yet, and you feel like you now have enough guard depth between Malik Beasley, Duncan Robinson, Karis LeVert, you like their fits next to Cade Cunningham, you feel like they're pretty plug-and-play guys. If you're not ready to commit, or you don't want to commit big money to Jaden Ivey, could also open up the door for that. Not saying that I would do that, but just throwing it out there as a plausible thing if Detroit does get Beasley back, because you look at all these guys that could get minutes at the 2. Even you could even go to someone like Asar Thompson and say, if they wanted to play a bigger lineup or get Ron Holland in the mix as well, you could slide Asar Thompson down or something along that lines. It could open up the door for something like that. But bring us into that second topic of today's show. We're talking about the contract extensions for Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey. Both these players are eligible to sign contract extensions right now. They're eligible to sign off, their rookie extensions, but no deal has been made. We have not heard much from the Pistons on this, other than we've had some talks, but nothing's really come out of it yet. Quite frankly, I think it's a really interesting discussion. I think it's becoming a more interesting discussion when you look at how the roster has shaped up for Detroit, and now if you're kind of expecting Malik Beasley back in the fold. But if you're the Detroit Pistons and you are signing one of these guys to an extension before this season starts, who is that for you? Is it Jalen Duren or is it Jaden Ivey?
This is a tough question because, frankly, there's so many questions about both of these players, and there's a tremendous amount of upside to both of these players. But for me, I have to go with Jalen Duren. And the reason is pretty simple. I just think when you look at this roster, it's way harder to replace what he brings to you right now. Like you look at the chemistry that him and Cade have in the pick and roll. It is apparent, and it only got stronger as the season went on. You saw the steps forward defensively he made after the new year last season. Still not perfect at that end, far from it, but definite progression in his skill set from that perspective. He is younger as well. I do think that has to come into the equation, and the replacement options they have for him are not anywhere good enough. If you're letting go of Jalen Duren, you're going to need to bring in somebody significant into the fold in order to replace what you're losing there. Isaiah Stewart, we already know this, cannot be a starting NBA center. It's just not going to work. Paul Reed, I mean, sorry. So like when I look at that versus what I look at Jaden Ivey, well, look, Jaden Ivey does some things exceptionally well, but there are to me still more question marks in regards to his development. Jalen Duren, very, very bad defender last year, or 2 years ago, I should say. Not a great defender last year, but you saw the improvement. Jaden Ivey, yes, he shot pretty well from three, but he wasn't a super high volume guy. He only shot about 4.5 per game. That's not, if you're a spacing guard, that's not enough spacing. And he has still yet to take a leap forward defensively. I know he works very hard, but working hard has never been the issue. It's the lack of focus. It's the lack of footwork. It's the lack of strength. It's the lack of technique on that end. He hasn't made progressions there, unfortunately. And then lastly, it's the lack of progression in the rim finishing. Look, Jaden Ivey just has not finished well at the rim since his very first year in the NBA, and he hasn't really gotten better. I mean, a difference of 2% is not significant enough. He is well below average as a finisher at the rim. So if what you're bringing to the team, because we all agree Cade Cunningham is the foundation, the foundational piece, if you're going to bring something to the team, it has to be to complement that skill set that Cade brings you. So I need to see Jaden Ivey take either a step forward as a rim finisher or as a volume shooter, or just get his defense to like an average baseline level. I think for me, I just have the most questions about all of those things for him because he hasn't really shown the progression outside of the three-point shooting. I have no questions about his effort level. That's not an issue for me. That was an issue for Jalen Duren, but I've seen what Jalen Duren can do when he's more locked in. I've seen the mentality shift from him. I just feel more certain about his progression at this point in time and his fit on this roster at this particular juncture. So I don't know if you feel differently here, Aaron. I'd like to keep both guys, but I'm not necessarily sure it's going to happen.
I think it is easier to make a case for a Jalen Duren extension, at least if you're going to do it this offseason. To be fair, he played 78 games last season. Jaden Ivey did not. And we saw as the season progressed that when the calendar flipped to 2025, it also kind of turned it up for Jalen Duren. And he kind of figured out, hey, this is how I'm going to succeed in this group. His attempts per game went down. His field goal percentage went up. His assists per game went up. His turnovers per game went down. 12 points, 10 rebounds, improved defense, averaged over a block a game, just under a steal per game. I know those aren't the most impactful defensive metrics out there, but definitely an improved defender. And he's going to be having just turned 22 years old 3 days before the Pistons play their first game of the season on October 22nd against the Chicago Bulls. So I think if you're going and you're building out a case for both of these players and saying, hey, this is why we need to do the extension now with Jalen Duren, or this is why we need to do the extension now with Jaden Ivey, I think you're going to come out of it saying that Jalen Duren has the better case to extend now. The growth that we saw from him last year, he was instrumental for Detroit. Without him, it would have been a much different version of the team, and they would have been in a much worse position without him. So everything that we saw from him, once the calendar turned to 2025, that's a big point in this, because the first part of the season was not great for Jalen Duren, but once the calendar flipped, everything kind of clicked for him. And I mean, it goes back to what he said in early 2025. He said something along the lines of, this is just paraphrasing, but he was like, I was playing soft. I was playing, like shit, or something along those lines. And for him to recognize that and then have the success that he did, one of the things that I was looking for in the playoff series against New York was, is Jalen Duren going to get played off the court? Are the Pistons going to be in a better position with him off the court than on? And there were a few moments in the series where they were better with him off the court, but once Detroit made some schematical changes and they stopped putting Jalen Duren on an island on the perimeter against Karl-Anthony Towns, Jalen Duren was actually really good. And so I'm really encouraged by what I saw from him in the 2025 part of last year's regular season and in the playoffs, for a guy in his first season in the playoffs, his first time through the playoffs at 21 years old. Look, my opinion on Jalen Duren has changed drastically from this past season to the 2023-2024 season. After the 2023-2024 season, I was ready for Detroit to go out and find a new center. I was ready for the Jalen Duren, the Jalen Duren experience to end in Detroit. But the way he bounced back last year was really encouraging. And now I think he should be a vital piece for Detroit to lock in. He obviously has incredible chemistry with Cade Cunningham. It seems like they spend a ton of time together. They obviously have a great chemistry on the court as well. He is a big part of obviously Detroit's pick and roll game, but obviously him and Cade have a really good ability to connect with each other. I really like Jalen Duren now, and I think he should be a key piece for Detroit on I don't know what the number is. That's the challenging part. I will leave that to the Pistons cap experts and in their front office to determine what his value is. But if they can get him on whatever that good value type of deal is, I think they should try to do it. I mean, Josh Giddey just got $25 million. If Josh Giddey's worth $25 million, I feel pretty comfortable saying that if that's the going rate for Josh Giddey, Jalen Duren probably deserves that as well.
I think you bring up a really good point when you talk about the playoffs, Aaron. Like, that to me was very instructive of what Jalen Duren can bring to this team. Like, and you totally are right. Like, he had some bad moments defensively, but you can scheme around that. And yes, while he struggled to cover Karl-Anthony Towns, which, I mean, how many players wouldn't struggle to cover Karl-Anthony Towns? I think it's also important to note, like, the Knicks struggled with him at times. They couldn't keep him from dunking the ball on pick and rolls. They couldn't keep him off the offensive glass. I believe he led all players in offensive rebounding, per game numbers, that is, in the NBA playoffs last year, like 4.5 offensive rebounds per game. I think that shows you the upside there. And I will say one thing in defense of Jaden Ivey. Look, I don't think it's a coincidence that Jalen Duren's defense got a lot better once Asar Thompson returned to the fold. When you have an elite defender, it makes everybody else's job a lot easier. Sure. And Jaden Ivey didn't have that same amount of time. I mean, they played like 2 games together, him and Asar, before Ivey got hurt. So I think that's one thing where if you're making a case for Jaden Ivey, I think that's the thing you can look at. You can go, look, yes, all the things that we've said are true, but he also didn't have an opportunity to grow with the Pistons as they grew throughout the season. He had a season cut short. He didn't have an opportunity to show what he could do in the playoffs. He didn't have an opportunity to really play big minutes alongside Asar Thompson to see how that affected his defense. And I think for me, that's the number one reason why, even though I would, if I had to, give a contract to Jalen Duren, why I wouldn't make these extensions before the season begins. I just think it's too soon. I just think there's too much up in the air. Like, yeah, I love the improvement I saw from Duren, but I need to see it for a whole year. And I need to see more improvement, because while it was nice and while he's still young and while there's a lot of positives, what's the ceiling? I don't really know still. So I think if I'm looking at, at these things, I think there is still definitely a case to be made for Jaden Ivey, but I think more importantly, there's a case to be made to wait and see on both of these players.
That is the encompassing take over all of this for me. And I have felt that way, and I've said it that way since these discussions started at the beginning of the offseason. There is no rush to do either of these contract extensions. Last year was great for Jalen Duren. It obviously didn't work out for Jaden Ivey. What if the script gets flipped this year? So let's see if the Pistons can build on last year and they can have that same level of success, if they can grow on that level of success that they had last year, and what role both of these players play in that growth, play in that success. And if things go wrong, what did they do that contributed to the decline, right? So I don't feel that they are under any pressure to get these deals done. They can wait until the end of next season. Once these guys become restricted free agents, they will maintain all of their rights. No other team will be able to sign them without Detroit having the opportunity to match any contract. They are in no rush to get a deal done with either of these players. I certainly feel the same, that they should wait it out, that they should see how each of these players perform in this upcoming season and go from there.
Yeah, I mean, God forbid, Jalen Duren. I guess the way I look at it is like, would I rather lock up Jalen Duren for 4 years right now at $25 million a year, or wait for the offseason where I might have to pay him $32 million a year, something like that? I'm willing to take that risk, I think. Like, I just don't think that paying Jalen Duren another $5 to $7 million a year is enough downside for the future to where it's not worth waiting and seeing if he can't, because I just don't see him playing himself into like that $40 million range. I just think when you look at like what the Pistons are going to ask of him offensively and defensively this year, and like with the limitations he's shown, I have a hard time seeing him take a huge step forward defensively. I could see another gradual step, and I'm okay with that. And then I'll go like, cool. All right, maybe we lost out on a little bit of a deal here. Maybe we'll regret it a little bit down the line, but I can live with that as an organization, as a fan, versus giving him $25 million this year, and then maybe in 2 years he hasn't made the improvements, and you're looking at that contract and you're like, oh, we kind of got to offload this guy because we're now also paying Asar Thompson, and maybe we're also paying Jaden Ivey, and we're paying Cade, and boy, we got to fill out the roster somehow. So I just think when you look at it and from that perspective, here's how I'd think about it. If they bring back Malik Beasley at $7 million a year this season, and they have Tobias Harris for $25 million a year this season, and both those guys are gone in the offseason, that's just Jalen Duren's money. So for me, I don't see really, I just don't see enough downside in waiting to get it done right now.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. I agree with you 100%. We have been pretty much in lockstep all podcast. Maybe a little bit unfortunate for the listeners if they came here hoping to hear some debate, but we were pretty much in agreement the whole way through. I got to say though, Jasper, you're kind of outdoing me here. When did we start having to wear collared shirts on the podcast? I feel underdressed. You got your hair all done. You've got the nice collared shirt on. Now I feel like I'm underdressed.
Aaron, I'm going to the Yankees game tonight, so I'm going to meet the president. It's important to put forward, my best look, but I also wouldn't worry about it too much. I'm not wearing any pants right now, so it all comes out even in the wash. You know what I mean? I'm on my Winnie the Pooh grind.
Oh man. Okay, this is a good time to wrap it up.
That's how I get these podcasts done. I'm like, it's time for me to go. What's the most off-putting thing I could possibly say in this moment?
All right, well, let us know what you guys think in the comments below. Who are you extending? If you had to pick one to extend this offseason, who are you extending between Jalen Duren or Jaden Ivey? Were we right? Were we wrong? Tell us why. Before you go, though, please hit the subscribe button, hit the follow button, hit the like button, all of that great stuff. We really appreciate your support. We are slowly but surely getting closer to the start of the NBA season. We will have plenty of more things to talk about. We will finally have basketball to talk about again, and it's going to be great. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you to our friends over at the FanDuel Sportsbook for their continued support. That is going to do it for this week's edition of the Palace of Pistons podcast, brought to you by Believe. Thanks so much for watching and listening. We'll see you guys next time.